So in my video featuring Hiroaka, I talked a lot about simplistic characterization and how the series uses that to its fullest potential, the result being the vast majority of characters coming off as both likable and enjoyable. And today I want to discuss another series I've watched recently that I think goes above and beyond in this regard, Haikyuu. It feels very similar at the start, except instead of quirks to reinforce their character traits, it's the positions everyone plays that helps bolster their personalities. And the structure of a sports team in general can help bring side characters to the forefront. Nobody feels irrelevant because everybody has a role to play. Literally. And that helps, both by identifying a character's specialty and reminding us that they need to work as a cohesive unit. Even when it comes to shot composition, it's never just Hinata spiking the ball. We frequently see shots of Nishinoya diving for attempted saves, and Daichi or Tanaka then going for the cover. No one is left out during a match, even if they are intentionally on the sidelines. Like we see with both Sugawara and Yamaguchi in the first season, there is a reason for it, and it ends up being vital to their characterization. None of this is likely news to you though. If you've been a part of any kind of team or club going all the way back to elementary school, then you're aware of the fact that there's no I in team and all of that motivational stuff. Organized groups can help you as an individual grow as you build a rapport with the people you're sharing a court, field, or room with. So given all this, it's really no surprise Haikyuu has an incredible supporting cast, surpassing in some ways Hiroaka when it comes to my personal preference, if you can believe it. That said, there's another aspect when it comes to the even more obscure side characters that I think Haikyuu handles tremendously, and that's what I really want to discuss. When it comes to background characters, those who serve no significant narrative purpose other than basically taking up space, be it in the plot or literal background, there is a temptation to just leave them like that. This may especially be the case if you really have no plans to eventually introduce them as proper cogs in the story. And all things being equal, it's entirely forgivable to do so, because odds are someone's favorite character isn't going to be townsperson B or somebody with less than a handful of lines. The question still is, though, what do you do with them? Because if used correctly, they can serve as a vehicle for a good bit of world building. Although that more so works with stories like Hiroaka or Princess Principal, where the world is very different from our own. So in the case of Haikyuu, where it's set in by all accounts contemporary and ordinary Japan, what can you do? Well, the laziest approach is to just have them fill in roles as occasionally recurring characters whom it may be fun to see our main cast interact with every once in a while. Beyond that though, they won't serve much of a purpose in the narrative and probably will have limited development at best. Haikyuu, as you may have guessed though, doesn't really take this approach. In fact, the insignificant background characters I'm going to talk about prove to not really be all that recurring for the most part. That's partially due to the fact that they're a part of the teams that Karasuno basically crushes early on in their tournaments. Slight spoiler alert, but not really, because the narrative clearly sets the focus on the team who they'll face in the next round or the one after, rather than their initial opponent in any particular tournament. For those teams though, we do get a drop or two of backstory, but for the most part these matches are wrapped up in a single episode. Now based on just what I've said so far, you may think this is a worse approach to take, what with the limited screen time and investment, but interestingly enough, I think the mangaka realized this. He knew there wouldn't be time to give every opposing team and characters a fully fleshed out backstory, at least not without horribly crippling the pace in the process. So instead, during their first match, the focus shifts from Karasuno to their opponents who they are by all accounts dominating. But at the same time, it also shifts to another set of side characters who also hadn't gotten much screen time up until now, those being the members of the Karasuno girls volleyball team, who are also playing in a tournament. And the series cleverly establishes an underlying link between the two by using Daichi, a more prominent character who just so happens to know members of both. It's a real shift in perspective, and it's not without purpose, because between the experiences of these two groups, a picture begins to form. Not one of triumph and happiness, but rather sadness and defeat. The struggle, the ultimately fruitless attempts to overcome a stronger opponent, get expertly weaved together through the use of an editing trick known as cross-cutting. We're shown Tokonami spiking the ball, and then cut to a shot of Karasuno receiving it in their match. The same trick then gets used when the girls spike it, as it cuts to a shot of Asahi receiving one from Tokonami. It only happens these two times, but that combined with the inner monologue is enough to link the two teams to the point where when Tokonami has lost, we sadly know the result is the same for the girls without so much as a score shown. And this connection continues after each steps off the court. Both captains dwell on their loss, and in that moment send a message greater than the sum of their parts. This episode uses these two teams as a means to teach us that this story is not just about the winners. For everyone victorious in a match, there are an equal number of people opposite you who are heartbroken. Especially so in a tournament like this, where it's guaranteed more people will walk away disappointed than satisfied. The anime even goes a little meta in this regard, talking about how in a work of fiction we would naturally follow the protagonists to nationals as everyone else gradually falls by the wayside. So instead, of course, Haikyuu decides to do just the opposite. Because in effect, these scenes plant an inherent feeling of empathy for the rest of the teams Karasuno will end up facing over the next 2 seasons and beyond, no matter how weak or strong they are. And without getting too sappy, I think it sends a message that's relevant even outside sports. The idea that it's not just your story, that everyone else out there has their own they're trying to live too, and that yours isn't intrinsically more important than theirs and vice versa. Back to the anime though, I thought this was a fantastic use of side characters who really didn't need to serve a significant role. I mean, neither team gets much more development as a whole, at least through season 3, and this didn't appear to be a major turning point for either of them. So instead, their proximity to Karasuno was used to develop both their and every team's love of volleyball and desire to win. In my opinion, they made the most out of these characters, and it actually had me caring for both teams, despite of course knowing that the story would continue to follow Karasuno. It made them feel less like background characters in a story and more like people in a living, realized world. I think that says a lot. But those are just my thoughts, and I encourage you to share your own. I just got done watching Haikyuu, and I realized how awesome this moment was both at the time and in retrospect, so I wanted to say something. But what about you? Do you agree or disagree? What do you think about the other side characters who get a little more screen time, like the members of Nekoma or Albajosai? And most importantly, who's your favorite member of Karasuno? Because I honestly can't pick. Whatever your thoughts are, you can let me know down below. As always though, thank you for watching, and an especially big thanks goes out to my awesome patrons, PenguinPandaZero, OverjoyedSoup, MVPino, James Morton, Mr. Idealist, Marbled Ranger, and everyone else for generously supporting me. If you would like to join those awesome people and help make more videos like this possible, you can click on the right to visit my Patreon page, click the left to subscribe, t-shirts and the like are now on sale, link for that down below, and don't forget to spike that notification button. Wow, that sounds really lame. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.